Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Yuri Ramirez, and on behalf of the Fresno Area Hispanic Foundation, we would like to thank you for joining us for today's presentation. Before getting started, I would like to remind all participants to please use the chat feature for any questions or comments. You can find it at the bottom of your screen if you're using a computer, or if you're using a tablet or a mobile, you can find it by pressing more, and then you can find the chat feature there. I would like to recognize our sponsors that allow our organization to provide these weekly webinars to our business community. Bank of America, Comcast, Bank of the West, Chevron, Federal Home Loan Bank of San Francisco, Donaghy Sales, Wells Fargo, Tri-Counties Bank, JP Morgan Chase, and Union Bank. Thank you for your support. This is our agenda for today. Our presenters are William Kell and Andrew Cha. I would like to share a little bit about the Fresno Area Hispanic Foundation. These are the programs and services we do offer. We do have virtual technical assistance. We do our weekly webinars, such as this one here. And we just became a CDFI. We're so excited with our microloan program. You can follow us on social media, and you can also find us at our website, www.fresnoahf.org. Okay, now I would like to present to you Bill Kill and Andrew Cha, who will be presenting.
Great, thank you, Ruby. There's another person in the waiting room. It's got to come in, I guess. Get out of there. Okay.
I'll stop
got those
sharing.
folks coming in there. Okay, yeah, Ruby, we'll wait for a second while they get in.
Yeah, 1 second.
I still see 2 people in the waiting room. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, you got it. Okay.
No, I mean, I think maybe I can let them in. Let's see. Yeah, admit them all. Here we go. Yeah, come on in, everybody. Denise, everybody. There you go. Okay, now we got everybody. Hey, welcome, everyone. So this is our third Friday regular legal workshop for folks, where you get free legal help, overview of different legal issues for you as entrepreneurs. At the end, I'll also point out that there are a number of services you can get through our website, including regular weekly office hours from 11 to 2 on Mondays and Wednesdays that you can sign up for through our website, which is www.law.berkeley.edu/NBCLC. Actually, Andrew, if you want to put that in the chat, it's on the last slide as well. We'll see that. And then also we have an online legal library for entrepreneurs, which is alilegal.com, where you can get a number of free legal resources in lay-friendly language. Generally, we just want to make the law as accessible as possible for all of you folks, knowing how expensive it is to hire a lawyer. And so I'm Bill Kell. I've been practicing since 1987, also assisted today by Andrew Cha, a senior law student at Berkeley Law. And so we're going to tell you a bit about e-commerce. So let's share my screen here and get us going. And as Ruby said, let's put comments in the chat, or excuse me, questions in the chat, so we can deal with them at the end. And we'll, of course, take them in order at that point. All right. Okay, so I think we'll cover this in about maybe about 35 minutes, I'm hoping. Okay, so here we go. First little thing I want to mention, of course, as we always do at the bottom here, that this kind of a workshop here is supposed to be general information about the law. It doesn't substitute for talking individually with a lawyer, and we do recommend that always. As I said, look for that through us. If you want to, office hours you can sign up for through our website. All right, well, so one of the first things to think about, let's collapse my screen here just a sec so we can see everything. Okay, there we go. Oops, oh, here's somebody else too. Here we go. So here's some legal information that you need to know about doing e-commerce. So what we're talking about is, well, first defining what e-commerce is about. Then we're going to focus on what are some consumer protections you need to know about when you're dealing with folks. And in that regard, of course, if you were doing this in person, of course, e-commerce would be over the web, but there are consumer protections that apply whether or not you're actually having any contact at all with a customer in person or not. Then we're going to talk about what you need for your website, for your e-commerce website. That would be particularly these things called terms of use or privacy policies. Then we're going to focus a little bit on what do you need to do when you're selling stuff online. Of course, sales permits, collecting sales tax is going to be important. Andrew's going to be focusing on that a little bit. Import, export laws, in case that's something you're doing over the U.S. borders and such. We're also going to answer questions about whether you need a business license or some kind of legal entity to do your e-commerce business from. And then finally, a question about whether you can do this from your home, as many people do. So, and then at the end, of course, we'll have those links to the office hours and other services. All right, well, first, let's define what we're talking about here. What is e-commerce? Well, Investopedia describes it as a business model that lets business or individuals buy and sell things over the web. And that's, I guess, sort of obvious, but there's several different kinds of customer segments that we're talking about here. This is where maybe you've heard of B2B, B2C, C2C, C2B. These are different forms of e-commerce that you're probably pretty familiar with. So a B2B would be like Paychex that processes the HR issues and payroll for another business. So that'd be business to business. Business to consumer, of course, Amazon. A lot of us are using these days. Consumer to consumer would be things like posting stuff on eBay and Craigslist. And then consumer to business is also another category where you have like influencers or people that drive business to business entities and such. So one thing that distinguishes about B2C, which is what I think we'll be mostly focusing on here, is that retaining customers takes some effort in this situation because they have so many choices out there on the web. So this is where I would say think of the kind of marketing you need to do to create loyal customers. This is where FHF would be a really good resource for you, thinking of new ways to improve your social media presence and other ways of driving people to your website there. Now, just another sort of subsection of B2C you should know about are these different kinds of B2C companies. So you think of direct sellers like Amazon, I was saying. Intermediaries would be something like Expedia, they help people buy plane tickets and stuff. Advertising-based B2C, so that would be something like maybe the Huffington Post or a number of websites that put content up, but also put ads up that then would drive people to different business websites. Community-based businesses, so that would be like Facebook, and Instagram. And then fee-based businesses, of course, our favorite, Netflix would be something like that, just providing services for a fee. All right, well, first thing you might ask is, well, I'm going online here, I'm selling stuff. What are things I have to worry about as a merchant who's selling stuff to consumers? And the Uniform Commercial Code, which is one of the major laws governing interactions between buyers and sellers, it defines a merchant as somebody who deals in goods of a kind or holds themselves out as having some knowledge or skill particular to the goods involved in the transaction there. So if you're saying, I'm going to be selling leather goods from Mexico or something like that, yeah, you're holding yourself out as being somebody who knows leather goods and, are going to be selling you stuff that are, leather goods of reasonable quality. And so there's a few rules that you have to pay attention to, okay? They are these. First thing, good faith and fair dealing in all of your interactions there. So, that sort of goes beyond being defined, but, what you need to do is just think of this as a, let me just move people here, here we go. It's more than just dealing with people like on a take it or leave it basis, or trying to, screw people over and get the best deal at their expense or something like that. That goes to the second rule, which is you don't want to have one-sided contracts. Is basically unconscionable contracts where one person benefits and the other takes all the burdens. Generally, are not going to be enforced by courts. There are these warranties you got to know about. These are implied. You don't even have these written down, but I mentioned that leather good company. Okay, well, the implied warranty of Mercantibility would say, if they say, we're going to get you a really, a set of cowboy boots that, match the picture that was on our website. Well, when it comes to you, it better not be made out of cardboard, okay? Warranty of marketability is essentially saying these goods that I'm selling you are good and adequate and reasonably used for the purposes that good is normally used for, okay? And then there's another thing, which would be a fitness for a particular purpose warranty. This would be where, let's say that the person said to you as you were buying the leather goods, hey, are these things good in the snow or in the rain? And if you said to them, oh, yeah, they're definitely waterproof. They're definitely waterproof. Okay, well, now you just made another warranty to say, I knew that you had a particular purpose in mind for this, and I reassured you about that. That means that it better be, waterproof or waterproofable. Okay, another couple of things to know is that agreements for sales of goods need to be over $500, need to be in writing. Now, that could just be an exchange of emails, as long as there is a writing that passes between you, signed by the person to be charged. That means, somebody clicked and said, yes, I'll pay for this on PayPal. That's enough. That's enough of a sort of a signature on the other side. But yeah, these transactions do have to have some written record that go with them if they're over $500. Contract modifications need to be in writing and signed by both parties, you should know. There is a difference, though. I didn't mention things about between merchants and merchants, but this is a contrast here, because merchants, for example, are expected to have, how would I say it, some sort of business regular course of dealing kind of thing. So if somebody said, oh yeah, I want these kinds of widgets. I'm going to need them for this kind of a thing, and you say, oh, I don't have widgets in those size, but I think these other widgets will work. Okay, well then you may have just done a contract modification with another merchant, but the idea is you could follow that up with a writing to confirm it. Whereas instead, with a consumer, you can't really execute the modification until the other person has signed and agreed to it. Okay. All right, so here's another thing. The UCC does give freedom, general freedom, to people to contract, but it fills in missing terms when you didn't include them in the contract. So you may not know, but this is kind of interesting, that if you didn't say so in your transaction, that you were, let's say you're these cowboy boots that you're selling somebody. If you didn't say, I'm going to deliver them to your home, the presumption under the UCC is that they actually have to come and pick them up at your place. The delivery is presumed to be at your address unless you say otherwise in the contract. So of course, that's probably what the consumer will want, say so in the contract. All right, so let's see, what do you need for this e-commerce website here? Okay, well, first you need to obtain a domain name, so this URL that will bring people to you. There's lots of different services that'll give them to you. GoDaddy's one of them. Other services are out there. Now, one thing you should know about this is once you get your domain name, let's say I was doing something, ice cream sandwiches. I was selling ice cream sandwiches online. Okay, if I got icecreamsandwich.com, oh boy, I'd be so happy. But that has no relation to whether you could actually trademark this name and get it protected from somebody else using it. Or it does not say anything about whether you could get a legal entity in the name of icecreamsandwiches.com. Okay, both of those are separate processes that you have to file with the government to do. The only thing that the domain name gives you is the exclusive right to use that domain name. All right, so just know that. And there are some things, we can maybe deal with this in the question part, is, sometimes you might encounter like squatters. If there was a major business that Jeff Bezos of Amazon was about to embark in, and he happened to say it in a press conference, oh, I'm going to do, I don't know, Hoopla. Our new business is going to be called Hoopla. Well, he better have gotten that domain name before he said it, because someone will quickly rush to the site and get that domain name and then hold it hostage from him, knowing he really wants it. And so all you should know is that if somebody is doing that to you, there are ways to potentially leverage that from them if they are essentially holding it hostage and not using it themselves, just saying, I have it, and now you have to pay a premium for it. Okay, now e-commerce interactions with customers on your website are going to require 2 documents, okay? And these are posted on your website: terms of use, okay, we call them TOU, and a privacy policy, which essentially is one of the terms of use, but it's got enough heft to it and requirements to that we sort of break it out, because both are really important. Now, I would say in terms of how to get this document on your website, you can of course email us at our website. I think you even have a couple of templates on our legal library online, alilegal.com. But I would also say that it's okay to adapt terms of use and privacy policy from other websites. Maybe look up one that's sort of similar to what yours is doing, similar functionality and stuff. However, use caution if you do this, because first of all, it may have some terms that don't really apply to what you're doing. For example, it could be an app plus a website. And if you don't have an app, it doesn't make any sense to have anything about your app on there. But here's probably the biggest concern is make sure you edit out the original company's identifying information, because technically, if you just used an actual copy of their terms of use or privacy policy, that could potentially be a copyright infringement. But you know what? All you have to do is just change it, put in your name, put in a couple extra terms, then it's yours. Generally, courts don't want to give somebody a copyright on the best terms of use or privacy policy, because everybody should have good terms of use and privacy policy. Okay, so a little bit about terms of use. All right. First of all, the terms of use has to reflect your functionality of your website. Okay, so what do I mean by that? So a common thing that people do is they allow customers to post content, like Facebook, something like that. If you allow customers to post stuff, then you're going to need a copyright takedown policy, or also bad conduct policy. Somebody puts up some porn or something like that, you don't want that on your website there. So what you want to have on your website, on your terms of use, is something that essentially says, hey, you can post stuff. By the way, we have a limited license to post it if you give it to us to post it. All right. And then if somebody complains though and says, wait a minute, that's my copyrighted material there, that person posted a picture that I took there. Okay, well, in order for you to not be liable for infringement, you're going to have a takedown policy on your terms of use. It's going to have to say something like, contact us at this, email if you think, there's a copyright infringing material up here, and then we take it down. Okay. And the general idea, by the way, is to keep it down. If somebody came back and said, no, I have proof it's really mine. Well, I wouldn't take a risk with that. I would just say, look, it's not that important. We're going to take it down just to be sure. Now, another functionality you might have on your website is contacting each other. Maybe a website that helps people find therapists. Let's say that website might give out the names and the contact information for those therapists. Okay, well, you need some bad conduct rules in that situation. What if the therapist said, look, I don't serve people who have your problem, and then the person starts harassing them and stuff? Okay, well, if they do stuff like that, we better be taking them off of our website too, because they just aren't using it in a way that is humane or appropriate. Now, if customers are buying stuff on your website, we do recommend that you generally use a third party to do this, like Stripe or PayPal or Plaid or a few other kinds. That's just because it's very hard to satisfy all of the payment processing laws of the different 50 states, and each state has their own. And by the way, that's how PayPal got to be so big, is because they were the first to go through and get a bunch of lawyers in each state to tell them how to handle all of the different state payment laws. So generally, you don't want to try and navigate that yourself. Have a third party do it. But if you do have a link to a third party site, like for example, you say, okay, if you're going to purchase this from this, click on this, takes you to the purchase website. You need to have something on your terms of use that also says, look, that third party's website, we're not responsible for it. We're not responsible for what they do either. Okay. Now, terms of use should generally include, at a minimum, a couple of things. Okay. First, that the website is only for personal use. Okay. I mean, if you want it to be commercial use, that's great. We had somebody who was using Carfax to help people buy used cars. And that person said to us, well, Carfax, why would they care? We said, it says here personal use here, you better check. And actually they did check with Carfax. Carfax was very upset with what they were doing, but they worked out a deal where Carfax essentially said, okay, if you need the Carfax information, then have your users set up accounts with Carfax to get the information, then they can bring it back to you and then you can do your business with it. Okay, well, see how these things can work out like that, but just, don't assume that commercial use is ever okay with another website. Here's one, your website terms can be changed at any time without notice to people. I mean, this is sort of, remember back I said that the modification of the agreement had to be in writing, signed by both parties. This is an exception to that because websites, interface with a whole bunch of people. You put this notice on your website saying we can change it at any time. And then of course, by using the website at its current iteration, you also have language that says the user agrees to all changes that have been made in the website as well. And then of course, users can be, debarred for any reason. They start using, things hacking into your website, something like that. You don't want those people around. So let's take them out, for any reason at any time. Okay. Now, the last thing you should know is that how is this made enforceable? There's two ways, okay? First, as you've probably seen in your own dealings with websites, they say, this little thing comes up on your screen and says, we've updated our terms of use here, click on it. And sometimes it even says, okay, you got to scroll to all the end of it and then click on it. Okay, well, that's one way to do it. That's what's called click wrap, a contract. But then more often these days, what we're just seeing is the terms of use are made prominently displayed on your website. And I don't mean like little teeny type at the bottom. I mean, maybe it says about us or, what are our products, but in the same size type and the same link in the same place, you'd have terms of use and privacy policy, visible to anybody looking at your website. As long as it's up there where they can find it reasonably, then they're still going to be deemed to have consented to this online contract that the terms of use creates. Okay, well, what about privacy policies? Well, this is more of a focus these days because of the California Consumer Privacy Act that came in a couple of years ago. The general idea is that privacy policies are needed because companies have to protect personally identifying user data, or PII, personally identifying information, from disclosure. Okay, and the California Consumer Privacy Act, what you should know is that act really applied to major businesses, as you can see, 25 million or more, or people who are gathering lots of California resident data, like 50K resident, 50K or more, or those deriving at least 50% of their annual revenue from selling residents' data. Okay, otherwise it's more, recommended, and we do recommend it. Oh shoot, where do we go here? Oh, here we go. And we do recommend it because this is the national trend, I would say, to generally protect consumer privacy. All of the states are moving in this direction. I mean, as I pointed out, I should point out above that Europe was a leader in this through something called GDPR rules, and California Consumer Privacy Act basically copied it, is what I would say. So what does it require? First, in your privacy policy, you need to say what PII is collected and how it is shared, okay? Now, users can request a copy of all the PII that you've gathered, and there must be an easy opt-out from sharing that. So if you tell people, okay, we're going to share this with our partners and others who we think you will have deals that you'd like to know about. Okay, well, it's got to have an easy opt-out at the bottom. You know, anytime it should be easy for the consumer to just click on something that says opt out, or, you know, no more emails or no more sharing or something like that. And you also have to have something in your privacy policy that says essentially, look, you can do that and opt out and there won't be any consequences. You'll still be able to, you know, buy and sell goods from us. Okay, finally, you should know there's another federal law called Copa, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, that says essentially that you cannot gather PII from children under 13 years old without their parents' okay. So just know that, you know, whether you put it in your privacy policy or not, that also applies to you for sure. Okay, well, what do you need to know when you're selling stuff online? Well, first thing we're going to do is tell you about seller's permits and sales tax. Andrew, let's have you take over here, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. Hi everyone. Nice to meet you. So what is seller's permit? So seller's permit is not the same thing as a business license. This is what seller's business license, we'll go over it later. Bill will tell you all about it. But seller's permit, why do you need it? How do you get it? We're gonna go over those. So you must obtain a seller's permit if you're engaged in business in California, and we'll go into the details, like what does engaged in business in California mean? And if you intend to sell or lease tangible personal property, that would ordinarily be subject to sales tax if sold at retail. I know it's like those two things are kind of wordy, but we'll tackle each part. And who needs to obtain the seller's permit? Both business entities and individuals, they both have to obtain it if you're gonna be selling anything in California, and it also applies to wholesalers and retailers. So what does it mean to be engaged in business in California? So that means you're engaged in business in California if you have an office, a sales room, a warehouse, like those are kind of more obvious stuff, right? You have a place of business in California, or you even have like a sales rep, agent, or canvasser in California. So for example, let's say you have like that cowboy shoe manufacturing business in Texas, and you decide one day that you want to try to get some customers over in California, and you send one of your agents over in California to do the sales over there to the retailers in California. That means that you're now engaged in business in California. Also applies to if you're also engaged in business if you receive rental payments from the lease of tangible property.
Yeah.
Next slide. So what is meant by ordinarily subject to sales tax? That's very vague, but in general, this means that this includes like retail sales of tangible personal properties. So for example, that will be like furniture, giftware, toys, antiques, clothing, like anything like physical and tangible. There's some service and labor costs that are taxable if they result in the creation of tangible personal property. So for example, like you are a jewelry maker and you have a custom order from one of your clients, and they're like, hey, like, can you make me a ring? I want the stone set in this way and that way in gold. Basically, it is a service and labor, but also at the same time, the end product is a ring, and you just created a tangible property. So even though like it's the service and labor, that will still be counted as a a thing that is taxable. So how do you apply for the sales permit? It's pretty simple. You go online to this link, cdtfa.ca.gov. You create an online account, you register your business, and then you just basically go through the questionnaires. The questionnaire will ask you like, what kind of business or what are you selling, things like that. And they'll ask, like the questionnaire will say like, are you selling like tobacco, alcohol, cannabis, like these different things? Because if those business applies to you, then they have like a little bit of different rules and regulations. So there are some things, like although generally most things are taxable, there are some like exemptions to things that are like taxable. So those products that are not taxable are like necessities of life. Food will depend, right? It depends. If you're selling like cold food, they're not like taxable, but generally if it's heated and you're selling it in a restaurant, or customers like come in, pick up your order, and they eat it at the parking lot or at home, those like heated foods are usually they are not tax exempt. But candies, snacks, animal life, seed, plant, fertilizer, health related things like drugs, medicine, wheelchair, those are exempt. And there is a very long list of things that are exempt. Best way is to go onto this website here on the link, and you can basically try to look for your product and if it's exempt or not. But mostly, generally, if you're selling a tangible product, it will be taxable.
I should note that the sales, that last part, sales by nonprofit, religious, and educational organizations, I'm pretty sure that you have to file for an exemption from sales tax if you are one of those organizations. So just know that there's an extra form you have to put in on that one. All right, well, let's see. So what do the sales permit holders have to do, Andrew?
Yeah, so these are the obligations as a sales permit holder. So you must like report and pay sales and use taxes in California, keep adequate records, and notify the CDTFA if there's any significant changes. That means like sale of your business, or you're relocating, changing your business address, things like that. California's sales tax is imposed on retailers and generally applies to their gross receipt from retail sales of merchandise. So that means that if you're a retailer and you sold like many products in one receipt, then it applies to all of them. And then also internet sales, since we're focused on that, they're treated just like as you would be at a retail store. So there's nothing special about having doing internet online business that would make you exempt. You would just treat it as you are to be selling stuff at a retail store. And then I think we can move on to the next slide. And a sale occurs in the state where the merchandise is physically located at the time the sale takes place. So that's a pretty obvious thing. So what's the difference? So there's this thing called sales tax, right? And there's also this thing called use tax, right? The sales tax, I just talked to you about it. So what is use tax? So use tax usually applies to out-of-state sales. So for example, let's say you have like that cowboy boot business in Texas, and you sell to a consumer in California, then that sale will be subject to use tax, right? And usually, generally, the buyer is required to pay the use tax. So you can think of it this way, like you probably have traveled before. You go to another country and you buy like a luxury good, like you bought a handbag from France and you bring it back to the US. They'll ask you like, hey, what are you bringing in from France? And they ask you that because they want to. There's like a tax on it, right? So this is kind of similar concept. So where you're getting things from out of state, buyers are usually required to pay the use tax separately. But there are some instances where the out of state business charges the use tax, and that really depends on the situation. And then the tax rate for sales and use tax is the same. So, and also at the same time, like you're not being charged for both. So sales tax only applies if you're within California and you're selling to California customers, but use tax can apply if you're an out-of-state business that sells to California consumer.
So, Andrew, so do I have it right? I think the way I was thinking of it was that, let's say you go to New York City, you buy a handbag, something like that, and then you take it back here, and somehow in New York you didn't pay sales tax on it, but then you brought it back here, and you're like, aha, I got this thing without paying sales tax. That's great. Well, technically, California can still get you. You'll still maybe have to pay a tax on this use tax side, meaning, you brought that property back that you bought, and now you're going to use it or consume it in the state of California. So we're going to get a little piece of that, even if you didn't pay sales tax in New York. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, and also like you might be wondering, like, how much sales tax do I need to charge to consumers? That really depends on like where your business is located. Even though like this California-based sales tax is 7.25%, but obviously in some cities it's gonna be a lot higher. Like I think in the Bay Area, maybe San Francisco is probably closer to 10%. Mm-hmm. And that all depends on like where your business is located and which county. And the best way to check that is through the link right here. cdtfa.com has a very nice user interface where you can just type in your zip code, and it will tell you like how much you should be charging for a sales tax.
So did you want me to cover this one, or do you want to cover it, Andrew? So this is one of the big questions that if you're selling online. Now, wait a minute, other states have sales taxes. So do I have to collect New York sales tax, which is 8%? Do you want to cover this, or I could?
You can cover it. Perfect.
Okay, so the answer to that question is complicated, and it made it even a little more complicated recently with a Supreme Court case. What it used to be was the idea, okay, remember that thing about no taxation without representation? Well, that's sort of the idea is, okay, look, if I don't have any connection with New York, it's just a New York resident who came to my website and bought my, my ice cream sandwiches. What connection do I really have with New York? And used to be that you had to have something more than just a customer in New York buying from you to have this connection, this sort of adequate, sufficient constitutional connection to the other state to collect that state's sales tax and transmit it to them. Well, there was a new case that came along in South Dakota versus Wayfair. Wayfair, the big company, buying and selling all kinds of furniture and stuff. The Supreme Court said, well, you can, as a state, legislate, come up with other ways to show an adequate nexus with an out-of-state merchant that might be selling to your residents. And unfortunately for you folks, what it did was it created a situation where you sort of have to check each state where you're selling to make sure that you aren't required to collect their sales tax. But the good thing is that most states' legislatures have exempted small sellers. And what I mean by that is, less than like $500,000 of business per year or something like that. What you might want to do is check the states where more of your sales go to. Now, this would apply just to, as I understand, this applies just to other states. It would not apply to like other countries unless there was some kind of treaty that the U.S. had with the other country, which I haven't heard of, that requires sales tax collection or something like that. Now, here's one thing that, a state could do. I think, for example, South Dakota said, okay, well, maybe a nexus enough is going to be using one of these aggregators or one of these advertising driving companies that has a presence in South Dakota. Oh, okay, maybe if you're using that on your website, maybe that has created enough of a connection with South Dakota or another state to be required, to require that you collect that sales tax. So what we did was we gave you this link here to just check out, whether there might be enough of a connection to collect from another state, collect sales tax and transmit sales tax back to that state. As I said, generally small sellers, I would say generally you wouldn't have to worry about it if you were less than $100,000 of sales to that particular state. All right. Okay, well, two other things we wanted to cover with you about selling stuff online would be like import laws. So import laws, generally importers don't need a license or a permit, but these are laws that are very complex. And that's why we strongly encourage you to hire a customs broker at the port of entry where you're getting where you're importing the goods, who can then help you with the paperwork and troubleshoot if things go wrong, things like that. Custom entry forms you will have to put in an EIN, employer identification number, or a employer tax ID number to identify your business. And then the main thing you just know is that customs, the U.S. Customs Service, they do have the absolute right to inspect all shipments. And so that absolute right might cause some delays in getting your stuff into the country in a timely manner. But that's where the custom brokers, will know the different kinds of reassurances that need to be made. Customs is going to be looking at, okay, what's the classification of the goods? Once you classify those goods, they'll be able to identify the duty, or basically the tariff, the cost that you're going to have to pay to bring that thing into the country. They're going to want to see proof of payment, okay? And they do say that if your goods are less than $2,000 in value, the shipment that you're receiving is less than $2,000 in value, then you would not have to, then it comes in what's called an informal entry, and that would be without posting a bond to ensure payment of the duty. If it's more than that, then you're probably going to have to post a bond, a surety bond, to say, okay, look, I can get some of these goods, but I will pay this, in due time. And there may be some quotas like textiles or other things. So that means that after a certain amount of that comes in, that you're bringing in, then there could be a higher customs rate if you go over that quota there. So these are things, again, a customs broker will know. And so you just want to look at sort of the closest port to where you are. Fresno, I wonder if that would be LA. Certainly, Sacramento probably be closer to San Francisco. Of course, airports can also be ports for this purpose as well. Then let's think about the export laws. Export laws are a little easier because generally, all you have to do is you have to find out if you need a license to export. And most goods that you're sending out from the U.S. do not require a license. It's the U.S. Commerce Department. It's called the Bureau of Industry and Security. They enforce these export regulations. There's this particular office that you might want to start with first. Got a little number there for you in California. But the main thing you want to check with them is, the burden is on you to figure out whether you need a license or not. And as I said, generally licenses are not required. It's only if the good that you're trying to export implicates national security, like if it's going to be potentially have a military use or something, or maybe there's a foreign policy issue that it implicates, or it might be in short supply, like, of course, like vaccines and stuff like that right now. So do check this. The way to do it is to go on this commerce control list. Oh, I meant to put a link in there, but you'll find it through the U.S. Commerce Department's Bureau of Industry and Security, the BIS. But you can also request the information through this electronic licensing system called SNAP-R. Here's the link to the SNAP-R. But also, let's say you're just a middle person and you're trying to export this. but the manufacturer gave it to you. So usually manufacturers will know whether you need a license or not, or whether the good has this 5-digit export control classification number, which would then mean, which would then determine whether you could sell it without, export it without a license there. So just check that out, be a little bit careful. Again, it's on you to determine whether you need a license or not. And there are fines if you needed a license and you still export it. I think it's something like $2,500 for the first offense. Depends. Okay, we're almost to the end here. Do I need a license? Do I need a business license or a legal entity to do my e-commerce business? Okay, well, let's start with the business license. You should know that every business has to file a notice with their local county or city. It's usually called a doing business as form, or DBA, or sometimes it's called a fictitious business name form. That essentially just tells the city or county that you're doing a business in their jurisdiction. There's usually not much of a fee that goes with that. But then some cities, counties, like Fresno, for example, have a business license that you have to purchase. It might be an annual fee. It might be a percentage of your income. Generally check again with your local, I would check with both your city and your county to see if you also need that business license as well. Now, as to business entity, we do a whole workshop on this. I think we did a whole workshop on this last month there, but this is something that we can help you figure out. Is there's several different kinds of business entities that are out there. And some are better than others for what you're doing. It's really an individualized thing to see what you're doing, see, for example, what kind of risk you're taking on, maybe what kind of capital you have to attract, how your decision-making is going to go in the entity, whether you need a certain tax treatment. I mean, as I said, there's several sort of indices that we would want to look at with you individually to figure out what kind you need. But the default rules are, okay, if you don't create this separate legal entity, California will presume that you are, if you're a single person or you're a married person, couple doing a business, that would be what's called a sole proprietor. Okay, if several founders are doing stuff and they haven't created this legal entity, separate legal entity, then they're going to be deemed to be a partnership, a legal partnership. And the most important thing to know is that neither of these entities will give you what's called limited liability. Limited liability means that if somebody sued your business, okay, they could only get what is in the coffers, the bank account of the entity itself, and they could not get to your personal assets. They couldn't get to your house, couldn't get to your car, you couldn't get to your college fund, any of that stuff. But as I said, if you don't create this separate legal entity, you are personally on the hook at this point for all of that stuff. If you had somebody who, let's say you were selling food and they lost their liver, well, you're going to be on the hook for the total cost of that liver unless your insurance will pay that amount. And and that's why good, smart people get insurance as well. But just remember, the backstop here is if you form a limited liability entity, then essentially you can't run out of insurance. Your insurance will pay for the first, let's say, $1 million of coverage that you got for them. And then the only thing, if the liver cost more than $1 million, then you'd say, well, take whatever is in my business account. They can't come after you individually. All right, well, so we generally recommend forming an LLC or a corporation if you're doing anything risky at all, okay? I should say to you that in the 13 years we've been around, 14 years now, I think there were only there were two businesses that we did not form a limited liability. We felt it was not maybe so much risk in those situations. One was a bow tie company. We didn't figure out how somebody could be killed with a bow tie. Although I suppose they could do a Mickey Mouse tie and then Walt Disney sues them out of existence. Another was selling used books on the web. Well, I suppose somebody could drop a book on their foot and hurt something, but generally, again, if you're doing something risky, to get a limited liability entity, an LLC or a corporation. That's not very expensive to form this thing. It is expensive a little bit to maintain it, because after the first year, you're going to be paying this $800 a year franchise tax. But but I don't know, if I was subject to $1 million lawsuit, and I could think to myself, yes, well, I'd pay $800 a year to make that go away. Yeah, certainly some peace of mind there. Yeah. All right, well, a couple other reasons to have an entity. Okay, you should know that with this new contracting law called AB5, that sole proprietorships are suspect, meaning that somebody who is trying to hire you as a contractor is going to be concerned that maybe you don't fall into one of the exceptions under this AB5 law, and maybe you'd come back at some point and say, hey, maybe I was misclassified. I should have been an employee and not a contractor, because then the hiring authority could be on the hook for as many years, up to 4 years of that misclassification. That maybe you should have been hired as an employee. Okay, so if you form an entity that's separate from yourself, the LLC or the corporation, then you don't have to worry about it so much. The AB5 has an exception of a B to B kind of exception out there. And of course, if you're being hired as an entity, there's not so much concern that you're being misclassified and should have been an employee. Okay, there's one other thing that you should know about, is that if you're undocumented, this is like the way to go into business, because you don't need a green card. You don't need work authorization to earn profits. I mean, Donald Trump owns all kinds of businesses in Dubai, but he's not a Dubai citizen. He doesn't have a right to work in Dubai, but he is a profit sharer, and you could be too, as long as in your LLC agreement, for example. We tend to recommend an LLC because it's just easier to form and manage one of these, as opposed to a corporation where you need a board of directors that oversees everything. But a corporation can work too. But an LLC, here's the thing: when you distribute money to yourself after you did work, you call those profits. You don't say, I'm earning a salary or compensation, wage compensation or wages or stuff like that. As long as it comes to you in the form of profits, that is okay. It does not violate your prohibition against work. Finally, just mentioning, it's cheap to form, $70 to $100 filing fee, $70 for the LLCs, $100 for the corporation. It's very easy to get help from us to help you figure out how to do this. Just sign up for office hours through that website that we have for you there. Okay, well, we're in the home stretch. Just one more thing here. Can you operate an e-commerce business from your home? Well, you may still, remember, you have to get that business license, and you got to do the doing business as or fictitious business name form. But the local zoning authority may also need to approve your use of your home, because generally, residential areas are supposed to be places that people aren't doing business. But you should know there are some businesses that have already been deemed to be a residential use of a home. For example, family childcare. You're doing childcare at your home. That's deemed to be a residential use of your home, so you don't have to worry so much for the zoning people saying, oh, well, it should be in a commercial district of some sort. So do just check with your local county or city business affairs office to see if by working out of your home, you need an additional approval from them. And what am I talking about approval? Well, you might need to describe your business. You might need to show a floor plan. Sometimes they'll have little requirements like that you can't have employees there, or that you can't occupy more than a certain amount of your floor area, things like that. Okay, well, but doing business from your home, another thing you need to think about is that you may need approval from your landlord, because most leases limit occupancy to residential and not business uses of the residence. So what do you do with that? Well, what we do is we recommend that you work proactively to address your landlord concerns that they might have on this. So for example, you have insurance, name that landlord too as an additional insured. So if you get sued and your landlord gets sued, then your insurance company will defend the landlord. Okay, and of course, avoid disruption in tenants and neighbors and stuff. schedule, for example, you're selling, you're selling some products online. People are coming to pick it up from you. Yeah, don't schedule all those pickups at the same time, because of parking and stuff like that. Now, when you're having a conversation with your landlord about this, you might start by going and getting that home use permit from the local zoning authority, because at the very least at that point, you'll be able to say, well, at least the city thinks, this is an okay use of the home, but, landlord, you have to approve it too. It just may, create some momentum, I guess is what I'd say, for that landlord to approve it. And finally, here's an important thing. If you got homeowners insurance or renters insurance, that insurance may not cover your home business. You understand it's going to be homeowners, covers homes, renters covers renting a home. It may not cover things that are related to your business use of the home. So just make sure with your insurer that that's covered, or shop for a separate policy for your business, your home use of the business through an insurance broker who will shop for the best policy from a number of companies for you. Okay, well, that's what we got. So I guess what I'd say to you folks is to, get more information, access free legal help, contact us, the New Business Community Law Clinic. Here's our contact information. So if you want to send us an email, there's the, newbusinesslaw@berkeley.edu. Go to this website to sign up for those office hours where we talk with you for an hour for basically for free, for free. And we can help coach you on some of these different things or answer different questions. Or if you're just looking to get some legal information, some good quality legal information for free, go to alilegal.com, which is our, online legal library that has lots of resources. We also have a Facebook and Instagram page. You can check things out. Okay, well, that's pretty much what we got here. Thank you, Andrew, for your great presentation there. Let's check out the chat and see if we got some questions here. Okay. What do you see, Andrew?
We have one question from Frank. He says, does the seller's permit apply to real estate and insurance agents?
Do you know about that, Andrew?
Yeah, so I did a little Google search, and it seems like they're not, and they have their own governing rules through the real estate license and through the insurance agent license. So I think the best way is to contact that side and try to see if you are required to have a seller's permit. But I'll be surprised.
Yeah, you might want to contact the governing authority there, which is the, the Department of Tax Administration and Finance. We gave you a link on that earlier. Yeah. They would be the ones overseeing that for sure. Yeah, good. Let's see, were there some other things in the chat? Let's see, before we take people's questions verbally, let's see. So if a small business located in California, sell to people in other states, would you charge the customer your local tax rate? Oh, excuse me, sorry. Shh, so you would sell to people in other states. You would, yes, charge the customer your local sales tax, and then collect it for the state of California. It's just that it's the other way around. If they, no, excuse me, if you sold, excuse me. So if the question would be, if that person in New York, let's say, bought from you, you would charge them the sales tax in California, pay it in California. Would you have to collect the sales tax in New York? That was that case in South Dakota I was talking about. No, generally you don't have to collect the sales tax that person would owe in New York, unless you have that, as I said, nexus to the state of New York, other than what you have, and you're not a big seller. Okay. Stay-at-home order and operating at home. Good question there. I don't think stay-at-home orders really affect whether you can do business at your home. I think stay-at-home orders actually definitely affect whether you can do business at your business place. But I don't think it has anything to do really with whether you're operating your business at home because you're at home. That satisfies the stay-at-home order there. Unless Monique, you had another follow-up on that one. Let's see, anything else here? Great info. Good. Okay, well, we can take verbal questions too now. If anybody wants to unmute themselves and ask, can try that for a couple of minutes. Oh,
Bill, do you mind making me host, please?
Oh, I think you just made me co-host, did you? Or unless oh, wait a minute, here's one. So yeah, I'll go back and make you, here we go, make you host. Okay, here we go. Got you there. Yes, yes, there we go. Okay, so there was one more question from T. Brown. How would taxes work if products are drop shipped? Okay, customer purchases from my website, but product is shipped from a different location. Ooh, okay, well, let me think about that. So if you were sort of a middle person, okay, I think the question is, where is the good when the sale is made? And if it's not in California, correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew, if yeah, let's say you've got this product in, Texas, and you arrange the sale with somebody from New York, from a buyer in New York, but it's in Texas right now, then my understanding is no, you would not need to collect California taxes because the item was not in California at the time of the sale. That's my understanding of it. Certainly double check that with the California Department of Tax Administration Finance that oversees this, but that's my reading of it. Is that your understanding, Andrew?
Yeah, so I think usually the taxes apply to the receiving side. So if you're selling to a customer in, let's say in New York, I think they're subject to the New York tax law. So
yeah, that's where they would have sales tax in New York potentially.
Yeah, so I'm gonna post a link. So this was on one of the sites, because every state has their own law in taxes, and we can't. It's like every state has their own tax laws, and it's very different. And this link that I just sent has some general guide for different states.
Yeah, that's the one that was in the PowerPoint. But yeah, I'm glad you pulled it out there like that. And then of course, if you have any questions on this, there's a good FAQs and the Department of Tax Administration Finance. Actually, Andrew, if you want to pull that one up too, let's put that in there too.
Which one?
The one from the California Department of Tax Administration and Finance.
Yeah.
The one where you get your sales permits from them. Let's put that one in the chat too. Okay. Any other questions that people have? Yeah, go ahead and unmute yourself if you have a question. There we go. County tax rates. Oh, okay. Well, that's the tax rates for the different counties and stuff, but you can go to that same site, the cdtfa.ca.gov to answer some of these questions. Just look for an FAQ there. Yeah. Hey, thanks, Frank. Okay, anybody have questions, verbal questions? If not, I'm going to turn that back over to Ruby.
Yes, thank you so much, Bill and Andrew, for that very informative presentation. I just have a few announcements here. I would like to invite everybody next Wednesday, February 24th at 8 a.m. We will have our Negociantes Unidos virtual meeting via Zoom. We are excited to bring the new Chief of Police, Valderrama. He will be talking about his projects. I also want to share with you guys this great new opportunity. One second here. In partnership with the California Office of the Small Business Advocate, eBay is announcing the launch of the Up and Running California program. Through the program, up to 300 California small businesses will be selected to participate in the 6-week interactive e-commerce training program designed to help them get and grow online. Interested businesses must apply to participate in the Up and Running California. The application period opens February 18th and closes on March 11th. So I will post on the chat the link where you can apply, and I will also say it's on there, ebay.com/California. You can always give us a call if you have any more questions. Our phone number here is 559-222-8705. And we would like to thank everybody for joining us today.
All right.
Is there any?
Thanks for hosting us.
Yes, thank you. Is there any more questions?
Doesn't look like it. Yeah. Here's that link again. berkeley.edu/NBCLC for services.
Okay. Well, hope everybody has a great rest of your afternoon.
And good weekend. All right, take care. Bye.